Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about how to pick a camera. I'm going to show two pictures. One was taken with a $2,500 setup, the other $350. So this is a lunch in Boston. It's a Japanese restaurant. You can see the roe and salmon and my daughter's hand blurry in the background. I'm going to show you another picture. Breakfast in Zurich, Switzerland. You can see the bread, ham, watermelon, and a cell phone blurry in the background. Now guess which picture was taken with the $2,500 setup, which with the $350 setup. The answer is that the breakfast in Zurich was taken with Canon T2i that cost probably $150 today, and a Sigma 30mm f1.4 lens, prime lens, that cost probably $200 today. So this is a $350 setup. When I went back to China last summer, I didn't bring my camera gear because I was planning only to visit my family, and my in-law and my parents, they all have cameras. I can just borrow their camera, and I didn't bring any photography gear. But then we had a slight change of plan. We planned to stay in Zurich for a bit of time. So I asked my father, hey, can I borrow one of your cameras? He said, oh, grab whatever you need. So I grabbed his old Canon camera, Canon T2i, with three lenses, the kit lens and telephoto lens and this prime lens, Sigma 31.4, and produced fantastic images in Zurich, Switzerland. You can see this picture versus the other one are both fantastic pictures, especially with some post-processing. In the photo editing software, you can produce very pleasing results with both setups. So this picture was taken with the Nikon ZF with a 50mm f1.8 S lens. The camera is $2,000, the lens $500. So this is a much more expensive setup, but the difference in image quality is marginal. For a hobbyist, you have more than enough quality. So the moral is that there is this diminishing marginal return of your camera gear. The first $350 give you maybe 90% of the value. If you spend another $2,150, it will give you some additional benefit, but it's very small for a hobbyist. For a pro, it is very important. For example, if you are shooting weddings, you need very good autofocus. Image quality is just one aspect. Nikon ZF has fantastic autofocus. You will not miss the moment. But for a hobbyist, it does not matter. You're not shooting like a wedding. Once you miss the shot, oh my God, your client will be pissed off. That's the most important moment in my life. You miss the shot. Nothing like that happens to hobbyists. So hobbyists can use some really old gear, cheap gear, to take great photos, produce professional quality results. The most important thing is your skill, not gear. Now let's talk about the next, how to pick a camera. First, ecosystem. I'm not a pro, I'm a hobbyist. I've used Canon, Nikon, Sony, Pentax, Panasonic, Olympus. I never used Fuji. I can tell you, as a hobbyist, you cannot go wrong with any of these brands. They will provide enough gear to meet your needs. But there's some difference. You need to do your research. I currently use Sony and Nikon, mostly Nikon. I have 5 full-frame camera bodies, 4 mirrorless, 1 DSLR, Nikon D810. I keep it because of I used it for a long time. It's kind of keep the memory. I have not used mirrorless cameras for Fuji, but I heard great things about it. I have not used a Canon mirrorless camera. I used Canon DSLR. I heard great things about it. So you cannot go wrong with any of these brands for a hobbyist. The reason I have so much camera gear is because I'm kind of interested in technology. I do not need so many gear. As I mentioned, you can take fantastic pictures with something really old, cheap. The reason I got so many cameras as a hobbyist is that the camera itself, the technology itself, becomes something interesting to me. So I'm interested in the camera gear itself. That's why I have so many camera gear. Yeah. Okay. That's about the ecosystem. You can't go wrong with any. If you have time, you should read some online reviews, pros and cons of each ecosystem. Sony offers the most third-party options. Nikon, you can have Nikon lens, Tamron lens, Viltrox lens. It's fewer options, but I heard Canon recently opened their opened up their RF mount, so there's going to be third-party lenses for Canon as well. But these are not deal breakers. I mean, you can buy the lenses you need from the OEM, from these main brand, no problem. Third-party lenses are very good these days. Yeah, can save you some money, but as a hobbyist, you do not need a lot of lenses. I once bought a macro lens, and now it's my favorite paperweight. Yeah, shot a few bugs and flowers and never used it again. So you do not need a lot of gear as a hobbyist. After ecosystem, you need to take into consideration the full frame versus APS-C. Both are great. You can't go wrong with either. The two pictures I just showed you, the APS-C, the breakfast in Zurich versus the sushi, Japanese lunch, the full frame, this is totally fine. If you love portraiture, the full frame camera will produce more blurry background because you have to get closer to the subject to feel the subject in your frame, in your sensor. The sensor is larger, yeah. So for blurry backgrounds, full frame offers a slight benefit, but today we have 1.4, 1.2 lenses for APS-C sensors, and APS-C will save you a lot of money, a lot of weight. The reason I use full frame because Nikon camera's APS-C does not have image stabilization on the sensor. This is one feature that I really like. I will talk about camera specs right after this. So full frame, APS-C, both are great choices for a hobbyist. Another consideration is mirrorless versus DSLR. DSLR are being phased out. Unless you already have DSLR gear, I strongly recommend you go mirrorless because mirrorless, the biggest disadvantage is battery life. But you can just buy some additional battery. They're not expensive nor are they heavy. You can just have a few extra batteries. The biggest advantage of mirrorless is autofocus. The autofocus system of modern mirrorless camera is just insane. 3D tracking, once the focus locks, it does not miss. Yeah, you rarely miss. It will keep focusing on the subject for a long time. Yeah, and there's AI chips built in, so the camera can recognize human face, pets, dogs, cats, birds, cars, airplanes, so on and so forth. So it makes your life a lot easier. So it's much better to use a mirrorless camera to shoot moving subjects than DSLR. So I would strongly recommend mirrorless versus the old DSLR. But you can't go wrong with either again. One thing I would like to mention is that if you use manual lens, by all means go mirrorless because the mirrorless camera have all the built-in features to allow you to focus manually, very accurately, like Nikon ZF. It can recognize person's eye, and if you manual focus, that little square will turn green when you nail the focus. It makes manual focus so much easier. So if you use manual focus lens, go mirrorless. Next, I'm going down a list of specs to walk through them, what they mean. So hopefully they'll help you pick a camera. And there's one thing that is not covered under the specs is autofocus performance. This you have to watch some online reviews. One good source is the Jared Polin, the FronosPhoto.com. Yeah, his video is pretty good. He shows the autofocus performance, everything. There are other people making similar videos. Check them out. So the specs does not cover autofocus performance. In general, Nikon cameras used to lag behind Canon and Sony in autofocus, but with the release of Nikon Z8, Z9, and ZF, they are quickly catching up. Their autofocus is more than enough for a hobbyist. The focus locks does not miss. Yeah, it's very good for these new models. Z6, Z6 II, Z5, their autofocus is no slouch either. I mentioned I have 3 full-frame cameras. Yeah, 5 full-frame cameras. 3 of them are Nikon mirrorless cameras, so I own 3 of them. So they are, even for the older models, Z6, it's totally fine. Yeah. Now, let's look at the specs. Sensor resolution, it's totally irrelevant. 4K is your display, most likely your 4K monitor, and 4K is about 8.3 megapixel. Your camera sensor 24 megapixels is more than enough, 3 times more than the 4K display, unless you want to zoom in, which you probably wouldn't. Yeah, if you screw up the composition, you can crop out 2/3 of an image, still get a 4K image. So this is totally fine. 24, 16, 18, they're all good. The smaller sensor megapixel count will save storage. The high resolution images cost a lot of storage, the raw files, and JPEG files both cost a lot of extra storage. Image sensor size, full frame versus APS-C already mentioned. Full frame produces slightly higher image quality and also more blurry background. Actually, because you have to feel the subject on your sensor, you have to get closer to the subject, which is cause the background to become more blurry. Yeah. Image stabilization, for me, this is an extremely important feature because I use a lot of prime lenses with no image stabilization. Image stabilization is extremely useful for hobbyists because vast majority of the time where you will not carry a tripod, you will be taking pictures handheld, and this will make your picture much sharper under low light. Image stabilization does not freezes action. It only freezes the camera sensor. So it's for shooting things that do not move or move very slowly. ISO sensitivity irrelevant. More than enough for a hobbyist. Continuous shooting for modern mirrorless cameras irrelevant. 14 frames per second is more than enough. Actually, Nikon ZF can shoot 30 frames per second for sports under the JPEG mode. Totally irrelevant. Unless you're specialized in wildlife photography or sports photography, which does not happen often to hobbyists. Recording mode, I think 4K 24 frames per second is more than enough. This guy shoots 60, which is nice because you can do some slow motion. And I think 4K is nice to have because most TVs today are 4K. If you shoot some 4K videos, you can make full use of your TV's 4K capabilities. External recording mode, you don't need to worry about it. This as a hobbyist, it's highly unlikely you will have a external recorder attached to your camera. Yeah, as a hobbyist, you will travel light. Memory card irrelevant, even for the CF Express card, which is kind of expensive. They're nothing. Yeah, $100 you can get one. Yeah, most cards like SD card and micro SD is extremely cheap. Quite irrelevant. These are standard features. Wi-Fi is necessary. I think it's good to have. Yeah, you can remotely control your camera with a cell phone, which is very nice. You can see the viewfinder on your cell phone and remotely control to take a selfie or something. Yeah. This articulating screen, I think, is very nice. There's also tilting screen. If you take selfies, you record yourself, articulating screen will be extremely important because you can flip the screen 180 degrees so you can see the screen while the video is being recorded. You can see yourself. If you do not have articulating screen, you have to use remote control from your cell phone or have an external display. Yeah. I think it's nice to have because with articulating screen, you can shoot from above, shoot from below, shoot with all kinds of weird angles without having to get your clothes dirty. Yeah. Otherwise, if the screen is not moving, you have to lie on the ground to shoot from below. Yeah. So this is a nice feature to have. Battery type, as long as the battery life is reasonable, it's totally fine. I have this Sony A7 II I bought a long time ago. The battery sucks. It drains very quickly. Yeah. For Nikon camera, no problem. Sensor resolution, as I already mentioned, this is irrelevant. Yeah. See. These are quite standard. Shutter speed, you don't have to worry about it. As a hobbyist, you will not likely encounter a situation where there's too much light. The shutter speed is not fast enough. This metering mode, everything's exposure modes are very standard. Exposure compensation is very standard, yeah. Metering range is quite standard. You won't encounter a situation where you shoot under pitch dark situation, yeah. It does not happen to hobbyists, yeah. Okay. The bit depth, the color depth I mentioned in my video, about comparison between cell phone and camera. So the 14-bit color is good, 2 to the 14th power. It's a lots of color. Avoid anything equal to or below 8-bit color, because with 8-bit color, there's only 256 different colors, and when you have like beautiful sunset sky and stuff, there will be banding. The color will have streaks because the colors are rounded to their nearest neighbor. Yeah, at least 10-bit, I would say. By the way, when we look at the video, there should also be a color bit. So this should be, these videos should be 10-bit, yeah. So 10-bit is I think the minimum, I would say, yeah. 10-bit is 2 to the 10th power, 1024 different colors, which will make your video look very nice. The still photo will have much more colors, so the videos snapshot from video will not be as good as a photo. The photo image quality is best. Recording limits, you will never reach the limit. Even if it's a soccer game, there's still 15 minutes break. You can swap battery or something, yeah. 125 minutes is continuous recording. You don't need that long time. Okay, yeah, every major brand have the mobile app. Yeah, you can install on your cell phone to control your camera remotely. GPS, you can use your cell phone, which is useful. Not very useful, actually. It just to put a geotag on your photos. You know, oh, this picture was taken at this location. Nice to have, but it's not a must. This is actually very important. Display size, resolution. So the electronic viewfinder is extremely important. The two cameras I own, for example, the Sony A7 II, nobody likes it. First of all, it's, as I mentioned in my other videos, very small. Nobody liked the form factor, and the grip is very tiny. The second reason is the display just, and electronic viewfinder just sucks. Yeah, they have a MOA, and it's very dark. It's very coarse. It's not a very high resolution. So nobody liked the camera because of this monitor and display. The viewfinder, 0.8 magnification. The higher the number, the better. So the electronic viewfinder does not cover 100% of your sensor. You can only see part of the image. So the higher the better. 0.8 is pretty good. Diopter adjustment, I'm nearsighted, a negative 2.5 or something. So this range should cover your eyesight range, like if you are nearsighted or farsighted. This way you can shoot without eyeglasses. I prefer shooting without eyeglasses, yeah. Autofocus sensitivity, this is useful if you shoot under dark conditions. This negative 10 is ridiculously high, yeah. So one stop is 2 to the first power is twice. So negative 10 versus negative 8 is 2 to the second power, 4 times difference. So you can have a quarter amount of light, you can still autofocus. Negative 10 is like a 2 to the 10th power. You can have 1024th amount of light and normal light and still autofocus, which is ridiculous. You can focus in pitch dark conditions, yeah. But most hobbyists does not matter, yeah. Unless you have very, very active nightlife, you shoot under some conditions like in the dim lit bars or restaurants or some out dark in the street. Yeah, this autofocus, you're shooting something will come in handy. Most time it's irrelevant. Flash, this is quite irrelevant. I never use flash. The reason that you're a hobbyist, if this is too dark, you just don't take picture. You can take picture another time when there's plenty of light, right? So this is an important factor, weight and size, depending on what kind of lens you're going to carry. I mentioned in my other video reviewing the 35-158 f2 to 2.8 zoom lens. That lens is like 2.5 pounds. Your camera will be like slightly over 1 pound, like Nikon ZF 1.5 pound. That weight is not very relevant if you have a small lens, but if you have big lens, the lens can weigh 3 pounds, twice as heavy as a camera. So the camera body weight is not a big deal. If you want to travel light, you can just use your cell phone or grab another lightweight camera like APS-C camera, because APS-C cameras have much smaller lenses. The lenses, especially large telephoto lenses, weighs much more than the camera, yeah. That's pretty much it. Everything about the camera. Last thing I want to mention is ergonomics. You want a camera that has a nice grip. You can hold comfortably. Oh, another thing I want to talk about is actually the appearance of the camera itself. This guy, Nikon ZF, is a retro style camera, and people buy it because they like the style, the retro style. To me, it's totally irrelevant. I program the camera. I customize it so that top dials are never used. Because I do not use, I think it's weird to use the kind of clicking sound dials. So the reason I bought this camera is about its autofocus. That's it. Okay, I hope this video will be helpful, and thank you for watching.